Aisha, when we spoke to you earlier, you were standing outside the family home where we saw very emotional scenes as Rashied Staggie's family met his hearse and his coffin as it was taken into his home. What has happened since then?
Hi, Marcel. So while the close family and friends are having an opportunity to pay their final respects to Rashied Staggie, people are beginning to gather outside the Jubilee Church here in Observatory for the church service. So we're expecting the coffin to arrive anytime soon with Rashied Staggie, where the service will be conducted. After the service, the body will then be taken to Manenberg, where Rashied Staggie spent most of his life. Apparently the community there requested for the body to come to Manenberg. It will then be at the Greens Sports Stadium, where local community members will be able to come and pay their last respects to Rashied Staggie, and after that the body will then be laid to rest at the cemetery in Cape Town.
And indeed some would call them the spiritual guides of Rashied Staggie have over the last week or so spoken about a man who turned his life around when he was released from prison after his last stint there. He converted to Christianity, became a motivational speaker, but not really in fitting with the pictures that we're looking at now. A rather lavish arrival of a giant convoy of posh cars that brought his body to his home. And the church you're standing outside of, we believe his wife is a rather fervent member of the congregation there at the Jubilee Church.
That is indeed so. I mean, the Staggie family is quite a diverse family, and this morning outside his home in London Street there were about half a dozen pastors, and when I left there they were about to do their final prayers outside the church so that they can prepare to come to Observatory. But as you say, you know, pastors talking about how Rashied Staggie had turned his life around, how he became a changed man after he was released from prison in 2013. But then when you speak to other people, they will talk about Rashied Staggie as the gangster, Rashied Staggie as the gang boss of one of the most feared gangs in Cape Town, how he destroyed lives on the Cape Flats. Some people saying that they cannot display any sympathy for him, while others are saying that he did change his life. Some people that I spoke to in Manenberg and on the Cape Flats were saying that this is the man who, when the government failed them, took their place and paid school fees for their children, provided for their children, put food on their table. And I guess these are the people who have requested for his body to come to Manenberg so that they can pay their last respects to him.
Let's talk about the significance of part of this funeral proceedings, including his body being taken to Manenberg. If memory serves, Manenberg is where the Hard Living's headquarters, known as the Hawk, is. I'm assuming that is still where it is. And many saying that that is indeed where this organization, the Hard Living, some saying it was run like a business because it started off running drugs and distribution around certain parts of the Cape Flats, but it's since exploded into a huge organization worth lots and lots of money.
Well, one could certainly see how much money this organization has if you just look, as I said earlier, if you look at the convoy of cars, the Range Rovers, the top of the Range Rovers that were brought from KwaZulu-Natal. There were at least 6 of them. There was a Porsche that also formed part of the convoy. And as you say, this was indeed run like a business, like a cartel. But as I said earlier, on the one hand, people saw him as a changed man. On the other hand, people saw him as a gang boss, and ordinary people now, which is significant, requesting for the body to come to Manenberg, to the sports field there, so that they can come and pay their last respects to this man before his body is taken to be buried in Durbanville at the cemetery there.
Aisha Ismail, we'll leave it there for now. Aisha coming to us live there from outside the Jubilee Church in Observatory, where there is expected to be a church service as part of the funeral proceedings for Rashied Staggie, who is being buried later on in Durbanville today.